following on that, Jared, can I ask you a very personal question? Why aren't you a Muslim?
Well, I'm not a Muslim because I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ. I
understand that. But why are you not a Muslim? A Muslim? Do you understand what a Muslim, what a Muslim means to be a Muslim?
Well, there's one thing that would keep me from being a Muslim, and it's the one thing that we can't. Just like you guys can't accept that the Trinity, or you can't accept shirk. I can't come to the Quran and I can't accept that Jesus Christ didn't die on the cross, nor was he resurrected. It's impossible for a Christian to do so.
So your hindrance to even think about Islam is because of your preconception of your belief that Christ died for your sin and God is a Trinity, and that is the foundation of your belief, in which you think anything that contradicts that cannot be true.
No, the foundation of my belief is the literal death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Suppose now I give you a book written 200 years ago, and it tells you exactly what you believe, but it tells you then didn't believe in another prophet called Olumba, and he asks you to pay lots of money to him and so on and so forth. So the elements of the beliefs are there: believe in the Trinity, believe in the crucifixion, but there's some additional elements, some extra belief that you need to do, that he's actually now a living prophet. So because your foundational belief about crucifixion is there, they believe in the Trinitarian God is there. So obviously
the Trinity doesn't apply to salvation.
No, in the way you explained earlier on, these are the foundational cornerstones of your belief. God has to be like that, and the belief about Jesus and crucifixion. So suppose you had all of that, but in addition to that, someone 200 years ago claims that he's a prophet, and he wants you to follow him. And he wants you to follow him. A prophet 200 years ago believes exactly.
Jesus wants me to follow him, and he'll lead me to God.
And why do you think that's the
clear scriptural text?
Now, why do you think someone who comes with a book 200 years before now, which is what, almost 2,000 years after Christ, and tells you to follow him as a prophet and believe in everything else, but some additional things that you have to follow this prophet called Olumba? What's stopping you from following that? Because now you have your foundational belief is there.
Because I follow Christ. I follow a much more ancient book. Why would I take a book that's coming?
So
later,
let's understand something.
Closer to now.
So let's understand something. So this is not about the belief itself. It's about how ancient this belief is.
Right. Understood.
Yeah.
I'm following.
So your belief is based on, it has to be something ancient. I mean, this is what I understand logically speaking. If you have a belief system in which the elements of belief is exactly what you believe in, and there's something extra on top of that, why are you reluctant to accept that new belief, while the elements that you believe in is also carried on?
Well, what does anybody believe? Any belief that they have, anybody has to take some type of scripture, or someone has to take some type of book and believe something.
So why would you reject that book?
The same thing with the Quran is like what you're doing is that you're explaining what happened with the Quran. That we had the scriptures, we had the Torah, we had the Pentateuch, we had the Bible, the Quran was come, and then people, Muslims, I believe personally, they cling to the Quran. And I think that the Bible and the Quran are so close.
I do apologize for interjecting. I understand your point.
Listening, Mansur. I'm listening.
Yeah. So if you now say like a book now 200 years ago now, in the 1800s, not even 18, much later, they talks about what you believe in and so on, you would not automatically believe in that book because you want to scrutinize this book, you want to verify the book, isn't it? The book itself, even though it tells you about your belief that you already hold, it's not necessarily a book that you would believe in just because it says so. You would want to verify this book.
Understood.
You would want to authenticate this book, isn't it? That's exactly the point that I want to highlight to you is if you want to have a belief system, you have to be ready to scrutinize the book, which is the foundation of your faith. So have you scrutinized the Quran? Whether the Quran is indeed from of the divine origin? Have you authenticated the Quran or falsified it?
Well, what I find in the Quran is I have studied the Quran extensively. If I could tell you guys the reason why I'm even here, it would probably blow your mind a little bit. But I mean, whether or not you understand why I'm here is a different story. I mean, the Quran itself, the only thing that keeps Christians from coming to the Quran is the literal death, burial, and the key term is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. If you go back to the Bible and you look at the Gospels and you look at the disciples didn't even know that Jesus would come back to life until he appeared and resurrected himself.
Why would you believe in those accounts to be true?
Why would I believe them to be true? Because historical evidence proves that it's true.
What evidence do we have historically that Christ was resurrected?
Josephus, which was a Jew. He was a Jewish historian.
Ijaz, do you want to come in on this? Because I don't think this was the case.
Yeah, this manuscript of Josephus, I think, comes in the 9th or 10th century CE. Josephus himself was a Pharisaical Jew. He literally lived and died on the belief that Jesus was not the Christ or even a Christ. He did not accept the resurrection of Christ. I think a lot of people who appeal to Josephus misunderstand what Josephus wrote. He is writing the traditions of the Jews themselves. He's not validating or verifying these individual beliefs that the Jews had. So when he traveled throughout the land under the auspices of Emperor Vespasian, he is just simply recounting what Jews claimed to have believed in, but it is not something he was convinced of by himself, not even to accept Christ as a Messiah. Just to point out as well, there were emendations to the text which mentions that Jesus was resurrected. This comes in only one late manuscript, and even Origen, who lives in the late 2nd century, early 3rd century CE, points out somewhat contradictory that in his own time, Josephus did not even consider Jesus to be a Messiah. Yet in the later writings of that same work by Josephus, which is meant to be earlier than Origen, we find a mention of him as a Messiah at least twice. So a lot of historians consider this to be a Eusebian forgery. So I don't think that's decidedly something to depend upon, because if Josephus himself rejected Jesus as the Christ, but you're using that same Josephus to say, here is historical proof that Christ was literally resurrected, this is not what Josephus is saying himself.
Okay, well, Josephus not being a Christian doesn't surprise me that he wouldn't confirm that Jesus was the Messiah, because you can't be a Christian without confirming Jesus is the Messiah. As far as the Quran goes, you guys say that Jesus is the Messiah, correct?
The Quran says that, not to us.
Okay,
but just to be clear, Josephus, remember, your appeal was that Josephus said historically that Jesus was resurrected. I'm responding to that point by saying Josephus is merely reporting legomenu, the sayings of the Jews of his own time. He's not determining as a historian that this is and of itself a historical fact. One is not the other. It's descriptive rather as prescriptive.
Okay, and Josephus just... I believe it. I believe it because I have a choice to believe it. Just as everybody else has a choice to believe whether or not. Jesus clearly himself said, "Blessed is he who's not seen me." And then if you
Jared,
ask about the
can I ask you a question?
Messiah, and you claim Jesus is the Messiah, Satan comes in to destroy, per usual.
No, it's a bad broadband, man. You need to get it. You need to pay for some better broadband. Nothing to do with Satan.
I'm surprised that Satan didn't come in any of our streams except.
No, exactly. So, Jared, I want to ask you one question, if you can hear me. When you said Messiah, what do you mean by the word Messiah? How do you understand that word? Because yes, Masih is something that is mentioned in the Quran, but it's a different. I think you understand it probably differently to the way the Quran understands it. So explain to us, what do you mean by the word Messiah?
I understand Jesus to be the Messiah as it is according to the scriptures, not according as it is.
What does that mean? Yes, what does that mean though? Can you define the word? Can you define what is Messiah?
Okay, well, let's look at what Jesus asked Peter. And he asked Peter, he said, "Who do men say that I am? Some say that thou art Elias, some that say are Jeremiah, some that say are one of the prophets." And Jesus looked at Peter and said, "But who do you say that I am?" And he said, "Thou art the Son of God, the Christ." And Jesus answered him and said, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah. Flesh and blood has not revealed it to you, but my Father which is in heaven has revealed it to you. So it's not me that has revealed it to me. I believe it's God that has revealed it to me, according to the scriptures.
Okay, so does that mean the Messiah means the Son of God?
That's up for your interpretation.
No. What do you understand it? That's the question
Yeah.
Brother Muhammad was asking.
We're asking. So what does Messiah mean?
Well, how the Jews understood it was that the Messiah would come in to redeem Israel. So
that's a different understanding from what Christ was saying, right, to Peter?
What's that? I couldn't hear you, Mansur.
Wasn't that a different understanding from Christ when he spoke to Peter that he's the Son of the living God, Christ? And there's a lots of sons of this living God as mentioned by Christ himself in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, right?
Well, it says that he's the firstborn, he's the first begotten, so that he may bring in sons and daughters.
Ephraim is the firstborn. Ephraim, not Christ. Ephraim, he is the firstborn. So what's the difference between the firstborn and the secondborn of God?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Reframe it.
Yeah. There are lots of sons of God, and Ephraim is the firstborn of God. And you were saying Christ is the firstborn of God. So now we have sons of God who are firstborn and who are second, and so on and so forth. As you can see, it doesn't mean that literally they're gods, because in the Jewish understanding, in the Jewish milieu, the phrase son of God doesn't mean someone who is divine. Adam is called a son of God in the New Testament, and I'm sure you know that very well. But you don't consider him to be Christ, neither do you consider him to be someone who is divine and worthy of worship. So there's a lot of things. I mean, you can go and we can talk about this, but we want to give a chance to our other speakers, other guests who are joining in. But one thing for sure is this: you need to, I think, go back and ask yourself, why do you consider these text, the scripture that you believe in, is reliable? If you are talking about going in extra biblical texts like Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny, you have all the others, each one of them have problems. So do the New Testament text, so do the Old Testament text have a problem. If you consider text needs to be understood, authenticated, and verified, we would invite you to do the same for the Quran. Look into the Quran and ask yourself, can this indeed be from God or not? And perhaps once you examine this, you can come back to another stream when we have and tell us about what you think. But it's good having you here today, and inshallah, God willing, we can continue this talk perhaps another time.
And I want to tell you guys, thank you for listening. I watched some of you guys YouTube stuff, and I know some of the Christians you guys talk to, they're not very well versed, nor do they understand the scriptures correctly. So when you guys see them in the street, it's a little bit different when you see somebody in the street. That's all that I can tell you. If you would carry on a conversation like you have here, it might be a little bit more productive. Yeah. So we eagerly wait for another stream where you can join in. Okay. Take our email, DawahWise@gmail.com, and you can email us and ask us when we are next coming into a live stream, and you can join in. All right. Yes, sir.
Jared, it's been a pleasure, Jared. Take care.
All right, take
Appreciate
care.
you.